And now, joining me on the show, we'd like to welcome in a good friend of mine, a Houstonian-raised young man who's now a superstar on international sights and sounds of television with ESPN, Bomani Jones. As you can see now how fancy his life is, you know, he used to be sitting around on horses and cows. Now he's sitting in some fancy Manhattan penthouse on the top floor, right, Bo?
It is on the top floor. I can't even deny that part.
Oh, see, I can't even joke with you like that no more because you got it like that.
What can I say?
So were you sitting around enjoying this non-sports event of the NFL draft that everybody turned into the greatest thing they've ever seen?
Oh, man. I mean, I did enjoy, like, the first round. I ain't watching for so much of, like, second and after, right? I admit, though, I was looking at all those houses like, yo, why are all y'all there with Granny right now? Like, one of them houses I looked over and saw Granny over there. I'm like, yo, this is not how this is supposed to work. This is not what you're supposed to do. And I would like to add, I know damn well don't all them coaches like their families that much and vice versa. I know they don't. Like the odds.
These were props. These were
like,
props big time.
Yeah, the odds that 30 out of 30 love their families. That's not how it works.
See, the way we'll figure it out is over the next 6, 8, 12 months, how many divorces we get to see it, how many splits come, and you go, well, okay, so obviously this thing that you ran back during the draft was all fake. And you do notice, though, that the kids, some of them didn't look very comfortable being in the room with Dad either.
So, no, because they know they're not allowed in there. Like one thing you ain't go, like if you want to show me that it's just like, oh, okay, and this is where we were being disingenuous here, right? Because I've heard all the stories that people have about their kids jumping in the Zoom shot, you know, when they're doing stuff for work and everything else. Okay, cool. But here's the thing. Nobody has stories of kids in their Zoom shots and the kids are behaving because that's not how it works. You know what I mean? They come in there where they're not supposed to be in there. You can't replicate that moment. It has to occur spontaneously.
That has to be organic. Yeah, no doubt. I've had barking dogs and all kind of stuff going on around here, so I certainly know how that is. In general, with the draft, are you one of those draft nuts who lock into it really, or are you like me? I watch it to see what outfits the guys are wearing, maybe to catch some background info, but overall, we spend more time talking about the draft than it warrants because 5-10 years later, we find out 3 of the guys actually made a difference.
Yeah, well, the thing is, what I thought about a player before the draft doesn't matter. Like, that's the thing that I've ultimately come to learn, is that if I was right about you before the draft, it doesn't matter. I'm going to have to talk about whatever you ultimately are. If I was wrong about you before the draft, doesn't matter. I'm going to have to ultimately talk about whatever it is that you become. So, like, I can watch it, and there'll be certain guys that, you know, I've seen through time and been like, oh, okay, that dude can ball or whatever. Oh, I think that's a good pick or something like that. But I do not have the time and energy to, like, really pour over these things, especially once I realize I can't pick a quarterback to save my life. Like, I feel like at a lot of these other positions, I can get pretty good at figuring out, you know, who's going to be what. Quarterbacks, man, once I figured out I didn't really know and I turned into super skeptic on every single one of them, right? Instead of like, I'm going to figure out the right one. Nope, I'm skeptical of them all.
And Patrick Mahomes has maybe blown that even further out of the water because you're like, how could I have seen him play? And I saw him play many times and not go, that's the greatest player I've ever seen because I've seen him play lately and he looks like the greatest player I've ever seen.
Yo, like I wonder with Mahomes, if he had come back for his last year at Texas Tech, maybe we would have seen it, right? Like maybe it would have been a Joe Burrow situation. But I'm with you. It's not like we never saw the dude play. There was no way to know that he was Michael Jordan because that's what it feels like at this point. It's like he is an analog to Michael Jordan. And what if I can't figure that out, right? If I can't see that, what am I doing?
Exactly. Now, getting into some of the things that went on during the draft, which is far more entertaining than most of the draft usually is. I don't know if you saw the Bill O'Brien going off and yelling at the screen. Well, when we talked to him after that, he said, oh, he was just messing around on Zoom. So that was his excuse for blowing up on the screen.
I mean, it's possible, right? The only problem with that is it implies a sense of humor that I have no reason to believe that Bill O'Brien has, right? Look, man, when we did Highly Questionable, Poppy made some joke and asked him about how he shaves his chin, and it was clear that Bill O'Brien did not at all find that to be humorous, right? And that's with the old man. So, how he managed to get all this power and how nobody can seem to do anything about it is so bizarre to me, because these decisions that he's made thus far are so obviously bad, right? And the way that he's handled the personnel into things and the leverage that he's given just about everybody that deals with him, whether it be somebody they're trying to sign or it happens to be like a team that's trading with him, whatever it is, he's so bad at this part of the job. He's not even that good at the part of the job that made it possible for him to get the next part of the job. What are we doing here? I just can't understand it.
What amazes me, though, is typically if somebody gets this kind of power, and I'm talking in any type situation, not just sports, but any type, they either are just genius at what they do. Clearly, he's not that. Or they're just the nicest person on the planet. So then everybody kept saying, yeah, we like him. Yeah, I like him. And next thing you know, this person at the top of the food chain, Bill O'Brien's not likable.
So where is that? I can't find his allies, right? Other than the Easterby dude who seems to be a trip and a half, I just can't figure out how O'Brien got enough allies in order to make this happen when he doesn't seem to have anybody around who likes him. I mean, look, this dude just gave away DeAndre Hopkins. And as good as I think that Watson is, if I'm Watson, I'm a little nervous here, because his entire career, he's always had this, if nothing else, just throw it to Hopkins. Like, the thing I always gave Watson credit for when he first got in was they didn't overcomplicate it. They did like Brett Favre did when he first had Sterling Sharp. If worse come to worse, I'm going to throw it to this dude that's always open. So what's it going to be when you don't have a guy who is always open?
Yeah, with the Texans, they're planning on Watson continuing to get better, and he's going to have to do it without the best player he's ever played with, no doubt about that. You're talking about your opinion of a player doesn't change based on what you knew before the draft coming out of it. What if you saw a tattoo on a guy's arm that seemed a bit sketchy leading into the draft, and then you find out today, as the New England Patriots did, of what their kicker, who was a draft pick, what that stands for, and the kid's explanation for it?
This raises so many questions. For one, the kid's explanation, I mean, if you say so, except it begged a lot of follow-up questions. And I'm disappointed in our colleagues that people were willing to buy what he offered, because his explanation was, I got it because I thought it was a military support symbol, and then it evolved into something else. And I'm guessing he just used evolved wrong, right? Like, I don't want to parse his words that closely, but he said it turned into something else, and it represents something I don't believe, and it will be covered. And I just want to know when you found this out, right? When did you find out that this was what it was? When you say covered, are you going to cover it with another tattoo? Or are you just going to keep it covered when you're on the field? Like, there's room, maybe, just maybe, for this kid to be telling the truth, and he just made a really stupid decision with a tattoo, right? I mean, I'm willing to entertain that possibility, but somebody got to ask him the questions that come after it. And I had somebody who has worked as an executive in the NBA who hit me up and was like, look, don't be naive about this. Tattoos and stuff like that, teams analyze those before they get guys. They go looking for affiliations based on tattoos. And generally, when people talk about doing that, they're talking about looking for gangs, right? And so they're primarily talking about what's happening with black and brown folks when they go looking for them, because those are the affiliations that they want. Is it possible that this guy was a kicker and therefore nobody did like the extreme vetting process on him? Is it possible that the white dudes, they don't think they in gangs, so they don't need to like check them out? The thing is, there are white gangs in this country, and they ain't really existing just to fight with other gangs or just to kick it around the neighborhood. There tend to be, from what I can tell, like larger causes behind what we would call those gangs. And that stuff requires research. Like, you got to kind of look into this. Nobody looked into it, and more importantly, nobody wants to. And that's the part that gets me, is that nobody wants to.
Nobody looked into it, but we're also talking about the Patriots. You know, a franchise who had a player well known with gang tattoos and gang affiliation that was known prior to the draft. They knew it. It took no time once Aaron Hernandez got into trouble for Boston Police Department and all of their law enforcement to tell you what each one of the tattoos meant, etc. So you would think if any team would be paying particular attention to tattoos, it would be the Patriots. But then again, in general, they don't care about that. Can he kick? Can he make kicks? He can have whatever tattoos he wants in a general sense, as long as he's not walking in and players, his teammates, will want to beat him up every day. They're pretty much fine with it anyway.
Yeah, I tell you this though, I would not be surprised if this young man never plays an NFL game. Like,
Really?
Well, another level of Patriots precedent is the Christian Peters situation in 95 or 96, whatever year that was. They drafted a dude out of Nebraska. And talk about a different era, right? They drafted him, and then everybody found out that he had been busted for rape. And then famously, Myra Kraft, Bob Kraft's late wife, she famously said, no, he's not going to play on the team. Kraft cut him, and then they went on. So, like, there is a precedent for the Patriots deciding, nah, this isn't something that we're going to do. The question is anybody going to press it hard enough to make it to where the young man has to answer for it and then the team has to answer for it? And NFL writers, they have to acknowledge the fact that pushing hard is not what they do. Baseball writers are far more inclined to push hard. Basketball writers, not so much. NHL writers, to a certain extent, they give the push. Football writers don't do that. And it feels like that conference call yesterday was a lot of people that asked a question because they were obligated to. And then once they got an answer, they're like, all right, cool. Now we ain't got to do that no more. Let's move on to something else. Like, I want to know. This should be one of those heartwarming stories. Like, yo, you accidentally got a tattoo for a far right-wing militia group, and you found out that you didn't mean to do that, right? You didn't think that's what it was. But what did you learn in the process? You know, like what things did you look up there? Because, like, you think about, like, Roddy Cooper. When Roddy Cooper got caught up in his situation, people were falling over themselves after he played well that year to start writing stories about, you know, how he had overcome it and everything else. If this dude got a tattoo from a far right-wing militia group and he didn't think that's what it was, he was betrayed. He was misled. Tell me the story about how he was done wrong. Ain't nobody going to do that.
All those heartwarming stories over the draft this weekend, dude. This is about overcoming fathers dying when kids are young or siblings passing away and getting killed. It wasn't about, I was stupid and got a bad tattoo. But you're right. A year from now, down the road, that story, he'll be able to pass through. I can't imagine he doesn't get to play, because I think you actually have to espouse that kind of rhetoric and that thought process for it to become a banning type of a thing.
I don't know if there's any more of an espousal than a front-facing tattoo, right? Like, that's the thing. If he gets on the team, then, okay, I think he'll wind up staying. I think, and this is where it's going to get real, like, the Patriots are insulated in a way they probably don't care. However, as things stand presently, they don't have a quarterback. So you're going to be willing to have a dude with a far right-wing militia tattoo that he shows off fairly frequently when there is a quarterback that you could go get, but people widely believe is not in the league because he said, hey, I sure wish the cops stop killing us.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. And not to mention, too, when it comes to the Patriots, the way they've always done business in minimizing stars, and especially now their one star is gone in Tom Brady, who else do you want to talk to over there except for this guy right now? So that could cause some serious problems. Hey, Bo, man, I definitely appreciate you jumping in here. What's going on in your world now for the next couple of months?
Man, look, I got a fine project. I'm doing one, though, right now called Bulldoze. It's a video series. It's going to be 5 parts, and we're doing it on the teams that couldn't get over the hump during Michael Jordan's time with the Bulls. And so we're putting those up on YouTube. Check those out. They're, tied to The Last Dance, of course. The Right Time Podcast. Check us out wherever you get your podcast. The Right Time. We got that going. And other than that, man, doing yoga. Trying to better myself while I'm doing this bid.
All right, and are you like me? It is like doing a bid. Are you like me, though, that you started having this argument back in 1994, 95 with Bulls fans or just anybody's fans, and it still keeps coming up, and I'm so tired of having the debate about whether the Rockets would have won if Michael Jordan had stayed and not left. I don't even entertain it anymore. It's so frustrating.
Yo, I did not grow up a Rockets fan, right? Like, we moved to Houston when I was 7, and I had my teams when we got there. So I did not grow up a Rockets fan. The Rockets absolutely would have beat the Bulls if they played in the series in 1994. No doubt in my mind. None whatsoever. And, boy, people get so mad. And I'm like, yo, wait till you watch this documentary. Look how much gas, like the fumes the Bulls are on by the end of this run that they had. Look at the fumes they were on by the end of the run they were in 93. Look at the fumes the Warriors were on by the end of this run that they just had. That's how the run goes, man. It strips you of everything that you got, and then you ain't got nobody to guard dreams, right? Like, that's we still got that.
Right.
And that's the Jordan run and people like to say the run of 6 titles. No, it wasn't just a Jordan run. That whole second half of those next 3, that's Dennis Rodman's run, because they had to reload and change and adjust completely. And Rodman wouldn't have been there for that Rockets. It's a silly debate.
Unpopular opinion. Jerry Krause was right. After '98 was definitely the time to start over with that, right? Like it was never going to be as good as it was before, and what it was in '98 was barely good enough.
Barely good enough indeed. Well, you're more than barely good enough. You're always outstanding, Bo. We appreciate it. And, you ain't have to take your hood off or nothing. You ain't have to shave or,
I know you're trying to hide
a hole in your natural, but that's all right.
Yeah, I'll show it to you after you cut.
All right, man. Appreciate it. Have a good one.
You too.